Well, Watchaholics, we've come to it at last. The last episode of Love is Blind, the finale. Oh man, what an episode. I mean, there were some shockers, I'm not gonna lie. There were some shockers and there were some non-shockers, of course, but let's get straight into it because we've got a lot to cover. This was an hour and a half long episode, and I was like, okay, this is an hour and a half long. Obviously, some stuff is about to go down. So, yeah. So let's get straight into it, guys. Okay, so the episode starts off with Chelsea and Jimmy where we left off from last episode, where Jimmy had pretty much been like, so I've decided, I'm really sure about you, but I haven't heard of what you think, like, about going to the altar. And at this point, I'm like, okay, all right, Chelsea's obviously going to be like, obviously I want to go to the altar. And that is what it eventually happens, because it was like the cliffhanger from the last episode. In this episode, she's just like, well, yesterday I didn't feel very good, but today we've had such a great day and all these things, which honestly I find kind of bad if like one day you want to marry one person and the next day you don't, like in a very serious way, like obviously, right, like everyone goes through lulls, but like I'm like, if you're sure not one day and you're sure, I don't know. But in the end she does say, I do see myself, marrying you though, and getting through this because we've had such great conversations and, we've been able to really work through stuff.
Wow.
So she says, oh, we've been able to overcome things and it's made us stronger and all these, crazy things that people say when they're delusional, because the girl is delusional if she really thought that this was going to work out in the end. But what really threw me for a loop, my mouth actually dropped, was the fact that after Jimmy has literally been like, well, you're the one for me. Like, yes, I love you so much. To then him saying, well, I don't see myself going to the altar. My mouth dropped. Like, I'm not lying. Like, my mouth was like this like the whole time.
I said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait. First of all, you're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
Jimmy, you didn't. I mean, do I disagree with this, what he did? Absolutely not. I knew Jimmy was going to say no at the altar regardless. So you know what? It was better for her that she didn't have to get dressed up in her wedding dress, didn't have to get embarrassed in front of her whole family and friends and everyone else. I mean, yeah, America's watching this episode, but like, at least he did that. At least he pulled the trigger before actually having to go all the way there. But what was so shocking was the fact that, like, she was surprised by this. I'm like, have you guys not realized that you guys have been together for 4 weeks and all you've done is fight? And I don't mean like, oh, I'm fighting because like, oh, he took the sheets. No, fighting over like concrete stuff that will make or break a relationship. So the fact that she thought that they could overcome that, girl, you really thought that this relationship was it. Absolutely, I'm shooketh. Like, she shooketh, and I'm not shooketh that he said no, because obviously we all knew he was gonna say no. We just thought it was gonna be at the altar, but basically, he says that the conversation that we all saw, that second argument in the bathroom where she was like yelling at him about sleeping with his friend, basically, and going out, and she didn't like people that went out situation. Remember that argument? That basically broke it for him. And to be honest, I don't even know how they didn't break up after that, because that was a very serious argument, like a really, really bad argument. I mean, like, she was basically telling him to his face, like, I don't believe that you love me. And he's like, okay, well, if you don't believe it, then why am I in this relationship? Like, I can see that is the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, he at that point was just like, what the actual F? Like what the F? And I don't know if he kind of went along with this for the cameras, like, or just because maybe there's like, they talk to producers, but producers like, hey, you gotta stick it out just a little longer. Like, you don't really know what they're being told, back behind the scenes, right? Like, that they have to make it a certain point, right? I mean, granted, Jackie and what's his name from the other season, I'm forgetting his name, like, they didn't even make it to the putting on the trying on the dresses and stuff. So I guess you don't have to necessarily make it all the way, but I don't know. To me, I was just like, girl, Like, that argument was bad. Not only did she really like break his trust, which is something that he says is also one of the reasons, is like, not only did she say all these things, not only did she need to be consistently like validated, but it was the fact that she kind of broke his trust. Well, not kind of, she broke his trust, and he felt very betrayed by that, because he told her something in confidence about the fact that he had, you know, had not a relationship, but he had slept with one of his now friends in the past, and she put it on blast in front of everyone, and he didn't want to do that. He was like, hey, like, that is something I told you in private, and I told you I didn't want that to be said in front of the cameras, and you went and just threw it out there. Understandably so. Like, it doesn't matter what secret it is, but if someone is telling you, like, hey, I don't want you to share this on camera, and then you drunkenly go and use that against him, and then now you've put that person on blast, like, unfair. Unfair. And then there's this whole double standard thing, which he also brought up. And I know a lot of people have kind of been talking about it, about how she was like, oh, well, how could you be texting and hanging out with this girl that you slept with? And he's just like, well, you talk to your ex all the time. And she goes, no, I don't. He's like, when we got back after we got back to the out of the pause, and we got back to our homes here, you FaceTimed him. I was like, okay.
Oh, okay.
She's like, oh, well, that was once. I don't talk to him every day. Okay, yeah, those are two different things. I gather that. It's very different to be texting someone who you slept with all the time and you're best friends now, versus someone who you don't really text. But at the same time, if you weren't that close, you wouldn't be FaceTiming him. Like, I don't FaceTime people I'm not very close with, right? So that to me was a little fishy, and a little bit kind of a I don't know. It was kind of weird. And I like that Jimmy, really kind of called her out. It was just like, well, ma'am, you do the same thing. So do not come for me. Do not come for me. But she just continues to bring up the friend that he had sex with. And he says that he just can't do it. Like, he loves her, but he can't see it anymore. And she just keeps saying, like, oh, well, you wasted my time. You wasted my time. And I was like, y'all wasted each other's time. You wasted each other's time, because the amount of times that you guys literally had to tell each other you loved each other in one day was enough for me to be like, okay, these people, specifically Jimmy, is really trying to convince himself that she is the one. Like, I'm sorry, what? No, it was weird. And then also that whole thing which he brought up, and obviously now we know that actually was like a really big dig to him, was the fact that, this was like the second time, I think it was the second time that Chelsea had, there's a Kelsey in The Bachelor, Chelsea. Chelsea had said, oh, Amy and Johnny are the strongest couple. And he was just like, he didn't like that in the last episode, and it kind of struck a nerve, but he was kind of like, oh, no, I'm fine. But clearly he was not fine. He was not fine, because it was not good. She was basically, I think, really hurt his ego, the fact that she was like, we're not the strongest couple. And I think they knew that. And they were just kind of spreading lies to people, saying that they were in perfect condition, that they were perfectly great, that they're the best couple in here. I'm like, y'all are lying to yourselves. Y'all are lying to yourselves, because you want this experiment to work, I think, and you're lying to yourselves. And you know what's so crazy about this couple is the fact that, like, at first, like, Chelsea wasn't in the wrong. Like, at first, everybody was kind of like anti-Jimmy, and right now, everyone's like anti-Chelsea. Everyone's like, what the fuck? What in the actual hell is going on in this relationship? And everybody's more people are siding with Jimmy than they are with Chelsea in this situation. I mean, that last argument they had was really bad, and I think it put her in like a really, really bad light, and it put Jimmy in a kind of like not so bad light. But yeah, guys, they ended up just, she's crying at this big amusement park. And granted, it did kind of suck, because she did bring up like, well, why did you bring me here on this really nice date and all this stuff, just like break up with me? Is that the reason why you wanted to do it now? It's like a soft blow. And I'm like, girl, at least you did it. I mean, yeah, y'all should have been broken up. Y'all shouldn't even made it past freaking Mexico. Was it Mexico or DR they were in? I don't know, they were Dominican Republic. Y'all shouldn't even made it past Dominican Republic, to be completely honest. Y'all should not have even made it past there. So the fact that you made it this far, astonishing. But in the end, yeah, they just break up. He's left alone at the table. She's crying in the park by herself, and we basically never see them again. Duh. We never see them again. Well, we will at the reunion. They better be there, which I'd be shocked if they weren't because they were one of the couples. So I can't wait to see that reunion next week. But then we move on to the Bachelor and Bachelorette parties. Not really much to say because there was only 2 women. It was Amy and AD. They're having their fun with their girls, dancing around while the guys are at their bachelor party playing cornhole in the park. Hilarious, just funny. Amy still says that she and Johnny are not having sex, and AD is like, that girl's lying. I read BS. She is beeping that man. She is beeping. She did not want to believe that like Amy and Johnny were not having sex. Now, granted, if they are, and if they aren't. I don't really care. To me, I think it's better that you wait, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, like, you actually don't really know this person that well. Like, you know them in a way, but like there are some people who are like, oh, I'm gonna wait a month before I have sex with this guy that I'm dating, right? So it's like, it's not a huge deal. I can tell it's been like a year, that'd be bad, but like I think it's fine. But what I found funny was the fact that AD could not believe it. She was just like, how are you testing? Like, she's like, that's like getting the car without test driving first. She's like, I don't do that. I thought that was funny. Very, very funny. But we move into our first wedding, which was AD and Clay.
Here we go. Here the fuck we go. Here the fuck we go.
And y'all, like I said in the beginning of this episode was an hour and a half. So at this point, there's still probably like 40 minutes, 50 minutes left. And I'm just like, all right, so who's saying no here? Because there's only 2 couples. And AD and Clay were first. And I'm just like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, are they going to say, I'm not going to lie. In that moment, I was like, oh my God, are they going to say yes? And Johnny's going to say no? Like, for a second, which was, to me, would have been like left field if Amy and Johnny did not get married. But there was a part of me that was just like, okay, we have like 50 minutes left. What if AD and Clay get married and Amy and Johnny don't? Oh my God. I was thinking like crazy thoughts. I don't know why I just didn't want to believe that AD and Clay weren't going to be the ones to get married, but that's besides me. So before we keep going here, generally speaking, this part of like the getting ready stuff to me is always just like a whole bunch of BS because it's just both couples just talking about how they love each other and they see a future with the person and all this stuff. Most times, most people aren't kind of giving away ahead of time that they're going to say no. Usually. So I kind of want to go through this a little quicker because I don't really want to talk too much about it being like, yeah, their families are there. They're all happy. AD looked beautiful. She looked hot. I was like, girl. Slay! Many of us dream to have that body. We dream to have the body that AD has. I mean, girl is, she's fit. I love her. She is fit. But yeah, they just talk about how like validating the other person is. Like, oh, they've made me feel so good. Clay's like, oh, she's been so patient with me. She's validated me and made me a better man. His friends are there and they talk about the teamwork and the marriage. Clay's dad comes, which I wasn't expecting to see. But so this the dad situation was a big thread throughout his storyline. And it really did come to a head in this episode. We meet his dad and you can see like definitely where Clay gets that like suave, like smooth talker kind of thing. Like the dad like can totally tell the type of life that he lives. Like it was very obvious. He had a lot of things to say and I don't know if I necessarily like understood. I felt like he was like doing a lot of talking, but not necessarily taking accountability for being like, yeah, son, I shouldn't cheat on your mom all these years, and I want you to let go of that kind of stuff. Like, it wasn't that kind of conversation, and I wish it was, because at the end of the day, that is what really traumatized, I guess, or really haunts Clay, is the fact that he really believes, like, not believes, but he's scared that he's going to become his mom and he's scared he's going to become his dad one day and like cheat on his wife and he's not good enough for marriage and all these things. Like you could tell like, that is something that sits very heavily with him, especially after that conversation where he met AD's mom. And it was interesting because, yeah, he was definitely the dad was very suave and had a lot to say, but I also did feel he had some nice things to say. He was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Like, you've come a long way, all this stuff. But the dad was also more talking about, like, I didn't have a father figure growing up. And that really affected me. And I didn't want to be an absent dad and all these things. I'm like, you were, I mean, and it's weird because then Clay talks about how he's like, oh, my dad was a great dad. I'm like, was he? Was he a great dad? Because the man traumatized you. How do you bring a child? I mean, I don't know how old he was. Clay never really said, but he does say, my dad used to bring me on his like cheating dates. I'm like, what? Like, what are you teaching your son? How are you a great dad if you were teaching your son that it is okay to lie and deceive on the person that you have promised to love to death do us part, to be there for that person, to respect that person, to love them, and you're doing these evil things? What is that teaching your son? And now here we are, how many years later, the guy is like scared of commitment, basically. He can't get into a relationship without like thinking like, I'm gonna become my dad kind of thing, right? And then Clay needs to go to therapy, hard therapy. But yeah, back to AD. Her mom's there, she's so happy, and at this point I was like, oh my god, I really think AD is gonna say yes. I think AD is gonna say yes. And then I was like, oh my god, if Clay says oh my god. There was a point in me, guys, I'm not gonna lie, there was a moment where I actually thought they were gonna get married. I was like, oh my god, oh my god, they're actually gonna get married. I really believed it. But anyway, we get down to the aisle. AD is super nervous. She walks down the aisle by herself. You can see she's incredibly nervous. Everyone's crying. Their vows are nice. AD's are on point. She really talks about her love for him. Now, I liked their vows, but someone did mention about how, AD's vows weren't really about what he brings to her life. It was more about like what she was bringing to his life. Like, oh, I'm gonna support you, and which is true. Like, it should be like that, right? But I don't know. It felt a little bit like I'm gonna be there for you because I'm gonna fix you, boy. Like, I'm gonna fix you. You're gonna be the man that I want you to be, which was not the good thing, because we all know that she they ask the girl first, which I always think whoever they ask first is always the worst, because if the person who they ask first says yes and the other person says no, y'all are embarrassed. It's embarrassing that you have said yes to this person who has said no. When if someone just says no, you kind of really don't really know what the other person was going to say, and you could kind of just be like, oh, thank God I wasn't embarrassed. No one knows what I was going to say, kind of thing, right? Unless they tell it to the camera. But initially, like, if you're the first one and you say yes and the other person says no, you are embarrassed in front of all the people watching through Netflix and everyone who was at the wedding, right? But they say AD goes first, and she does say, I do. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then they ask Clay, and the moment someone starts talking, generally speaking, there has been other occasions where people start talking and then they say yes. But he started talking, and he was like, AD, I love you. Whatever. He says a whole bunch of stuff, and he says like, but I think it would not be responsible of me to say yes. I was like, boy, he isn't ready to 100% to commit to her at this point. And granted, was it the right choice? Absolutely. Absolutely, it was the right choice. I'm very, very happy that he said no, because he was not ready. He was not ready to get married. We all knew at some point, we all knew that he was a work in progress. We all say that he has attributes that we're like, okay, we see potential, but is he ready? No. And the sad part is that he did give kind of a lot of vibes to AD by saying like, hey, I'm scared I'm going to cheat. Hey, I need to go to therapy. Hey, my dad used to cheat on my mom, and I'm very traumatized by that. Hey, I'm not sure, like, should we wait? Like, is there a time limit on things? There was a lot of things that were said that she was not reciprocating. She was not taking in. And because of that, I think she was like, she had her blinders on because she really wanted to believe that this man could make it, could go all the way with her, not realizing that he just wasn't the one. He was not ready to be in a relationship. This man is not ready to commit to a woman. The guy couldn't even figure out how to come home and spend time with you while he was working. Like the fact that he was like, no, my business comes first, like we'll figure it out later, that alone should have been like a red flag. It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm gonna be your wife, we need to figure out a schedule here. The fact that he was like missing things like that to me was a red flag. But in the moment, she is very confused, she's very hurt, she's just like, Clay, like, are you serious? Like, what? Like, I fell for her. I really fell for her in the moment. I was like, oh my God, girl, I'm so sorry. Oh, it's like she was sore. She was like, oh, it was sad. It was really, really sad. She leaves, and, you have a lot of ITMs with Clay, and he basically says, that he just wasn't ready. He looked in the mirror, and he told himself, he asked himself, am I a husband? Am I ready to be a husband? He said no. He wasn't ready to say I do, and he wasn't ready to be a husband. There's just lots of crying basically for the next bit here. We have Clay's mom tell him like, hey, you have to do what's right for you. And if it wasn't in your heart, you didn't feel it in your heart, I'm glad that you didn't do it because you don't want to force it. And it's true. I mean, his mom is an absolute delight. And I want to talk about the conversation that she has with Clay's dad, which, granted, I don't know what kind of relationship they have. I know they're divorced, but I don't know if it's been like, do they see each other often, or are they like, do they meet in like family occasions, or are they very separated? Is this like how long has it been since they've last seen each other? Like, you don't really know. But what you gather from this relationship or from this situation was the fact that like, she obviously did not know, I think, about the whole Clay situation, about him being there on, like, him taking Clay with him to, like, cheat, like, how do I say that? Taking Clay with him while he was cheating on his mom, basically. So he was experiencing all these things and seeing these things through very different through different lenses. And she pretty much calls him out, like, hardcore, and I loved it. She pretty says like, "Boy, you traumatized your kid." Like Clay is very much scared to commit to women because of you. Like, you created this in his mind, and you've never taken accountability for it. And one of my favorite things was that like the dad was kind of being like, "Yeah, well, he needs to find himself like a woman like you," and she's just like. Oh my gosh, her comeback for this was amazing. She's just like, oh no. She's like, it doesn't have to be like me because you married me and look what you did to me. I said, oh, oh.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment.
Beautiful.
Clay's mom. Yes. She said, sorry, sir. I'm sorry, what? Don't you even try to do this to me. Don't you even try, okay? But like you can kind of tell like he feels a little bit sad about what he did, and she tells him like, she's like, I know I forgave you, but there are some things that have come to light that have not been very nice for me to find out. And I'm pretty sure it's just like I'm like, I don't know, why is it because of the show? Like, why did Clay just decide to be like, hey mom, by the way, dad used to take me with him when he used to cheat on you? Like that's a lot to take in, especially depending on how long ago it was. Like, that's a lot, right? But yeah, going back to AD and Clay, he goes to see her in her little like bridal suite, and she's crying, and he's just like, I'm not rejecting you. He was like, I'm just not ready. Like, why does there have to be a timeline and all this stuff? And granted, if they both agreed, like, hey, if you want to say no, it's fine, we can date after, okay. But she clearly told him, she's like, if you say no at the altar, I will not date you. Like, I wanted to be full into this experiment, into this process, and I want to marry you. That is what Love, this is what the show was, right? Love is Blind. You come here and you go get married. It's not, hey, let's get to know each other and then date after. That's not the point of this process or this experiment, right? So the fact that he just kept bringing it up, I'm like, sir, she told you. We saw it. We heard it. She said, I will not date you after this. And she is just so distraught. She's like, I feel like you kind of used me, and I feel like I was a sacrifice just to build you up and make you a better person, and then you left me. I was like, ooh. I'm like, he kind of did. He did. And that was the problem, was that she wasn't recognizing those red flags, and she needs to start figuring, she also needs to go to therapy. Like, at the end of the day, she also got to go to therapy. It's like, she just wasn't reading on the red flags, and she wanted to fix him and make him something so bad that she was ignoring all the bad stuff. She wasn't really following her gut, which sucks because I think she's a very smart woman. Like, I really think that. So it really disappoints me not disappoints me, but it makes me feel really bad that she felt that she wasn't good enough. In the end, she's like, I always date these guys and I just feel like I'm not good enough. And I'm like, girl, it's not you. You are more than good enough. Like, she deserves so much better than the crap that she gets. Like, she really does. And I hope she can recognize that, especially after watching this back. Hopefully she will gather some sort of like, like, not self-esteem, because I think she is very confident, but I think like just like to gather the fact that it's like, no, bitch, no, this guy's not enough for me. Like, no, he's not enough for me. He came on this show knowing he was not ready to commit to anyone and came on here and basically wasted my time. Because is that true, my friends? Is that true? Yes. Absolutely. In my opinion, this man was never ready to go on the show. He was not ready for marriage. And I'm just like, sir, if you were not ready for marriage, you knew that, okay? This whole time he was like saying like, so he's telling her like, well, I'm not ready to commit to 100%. I'm still working on myself. If you knew that, why did you come on the show? You knew. It's not like all of a sudden like you came into the show and you didn't know. Like, you can't say like, I've never seen it. Okay, you might have never seen it, but they tell you what the premise of the show is. They tell you go into a pod, you date for 4 weeks, and then you get married. It's not like they're saying like it's a surprise. It's not like it's a surprise. They tell you that is what the point of this process, of this experiment is. So why would you do it and waste any girl's time? Because he would have done the same thing if it was even if it wasn't AD, right? Right? Do we think that? I don't know. I mean, maybe it was AD. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I really think that it just, he himself wasn't ready, and it was upsetting because he did kind of drag her with her in this process for nothing. And one other thing I do want to mention, which I thought was very odd, was there's a moment where he has an ITM and he's like saying like, I looked in the mirror, or I was asking myself like, am I ready? No. Am I deeply in love with her? No. We haven't even talked about finances. Like, I don't know how her finances are, and that's a very important thing in marriage. And I'm like, wait. Now we're just throwing spaghetti at a wall. What the fuck? It literally just felt like he was just like coming up with all these different ideas of reasons about why he wouldn't be ready to get married. And I was like, well, first of all, the finance thing is always what someone always has a fight over the finances on the show. Like the first episode when they're like, okay, so what's your credit card score? Do you spend a lot of money? Like, people are always talking about that. And now that I'm saying that out loud, this was the first season where that was not brought up. There was not one couple that talked about finances being an issue. You never talked about anyone being like, oh, I'm not good with money, or I have debt, or I'm good with it, or I'm really, I've worked really hard to get where I'm like, you actually didn't. I just figured that out. We didn't have one couple fight or have a discussion about finance, and it happens every season. Interesting. Very interesting. I hope Amy and Johnny talked about this. And speaking of Amy and Johnny, let's get into the rest of this episode, which pretty much is Amy and Johnny get married. I don't even know if there's a point to even talk about anything with it. You can just see that there's so much love within these families. Amy really wanted to have one of his sisters be in her bridal party. I think he had one of his sisters and his brother in his party. But it was so sweet. You see like his sister just being like, "Oh, I just know that you are the one for Johnny, and I'm so happy I'm so excited to join our families." Like it was just so sweet. They both look like loving families, and I hope to God they're still together. You also meet Johnny's parents, which we hadn't met before. They're both super supportive, very sweet. And they didn't really have much to say. They were just like, what other way could there be to get me? Like the dad was super cool, like just really nice. And Johnny didn't really have much to say. He was just like, they were like, are you ready? And he's like, yep, I think I am. And I'm like, there is nothing about what he's saying that makes me think he's going to say no at this point. Like there's no way he would say no. Like I would be probably rolling on the floor if he would have said no, because I knew she was going to say yes. So if he would have said no, I would have been shocked. But Amy's dad talks about how he had his reservations at first about the experiment, but he changed his mind after he saw just how happy his daughter was. And he gave so many wonderful speeches throughout the whole, when they say I do and everything at their little party. And it was such a beautiful moment, a beautiful family together. The mixing of families was just, it's going to be beautiful. And I hope that it's still going well. They ask Amy first. Amy says, I do. And then they ask Johnny and he just says, I do. And it's super sweet. But it was just so weird because at first Johnny was so like stone cold, like no emotion in his face. He was just like, I was like, oh my God. I really thought for a second, I was like, oh my God, could he possibly say no? I'm like, oh my God, could he say no? No, he can't. I was like, oh my God. Like I was freaking out for a moment, but they say I do. They're super cute. They walk out. He's like, oh my God, he looks so beautiful. They have their little moment when they're back there. It's just so sweet. AD and it kind of goes back between AD and Clay and kind of showing what they think. AD says that she doesn't see herself dating Clay after this. And Clay is in his ITM, and you can just tell he's just like at this point, like just over it. And he says like he feels like an idiot and he just wants to leave. He feels very uncomfortable. You can tell on the camera that he's just like, the producers are just kind of like asking questions, and he's kind of like, I want to leave this conversation. Like I'm done talking pretty much. Now it's interesting. They didn't ask them. Normally they even ask the broken up people if they believe love is blind. I feel like they might have asked AD, but I can't remember. But I don't think they asked Clay. They did obviously ask Johnny and Amy. And of course they said, yeah, love is blind to them. They're very happy. They have their party with their families and they're dancing and they're saying husband and wife. And it is funny. When the first time when I got married and I had to say husband, it was so weird to be like, my husband, like it was like, it's really weird to say husband. So they were very, very cute. But yeah, that was the finale, guys. Out of 4 couples, I think it was 4, right? 4? No, 5 couples. Oh my God. I forgot about Laura and Jeremy. So wait, all the couples that first went to Mexico, it was Laura and Jeremy, Jimmy and Chelsea, AD and Clay, Amy and Johnny, Britt and Kenneth. So out of 5 couples, y'all, only 1 got married. Wow. That's a low one this season. That's a low one. Wow. Because last season, what did we get? We got I think it was 2. Was it 2? We got Milton and Lydia. Why am I already forgetting the other couple that got married? God, all these seasons, they're all starting to mesh. I can't remember. I don't know why I can only remember Lydia and Milton right now. But yeah, like wow, out of 5 couples, only 1 couple survived. Wow. 1 couple, and they all broke up, guys. This is the funny part, is that they all broke up very like different points of the season. It was like 1 couple only made it past the first episode of Mexico. The other couple didn't make it past the lake house reunion party. The other couple didn't make it to the altar at all. And then the last 2, one didn't say no. So one said no at the altar. Wow. This is going to be a fantastic reunion. It freaking better be. I'm going to be so pissed off if it's a dud. because I want it to be a good one. Because I remember in the trailer they said that we were going to be able to ask questions. Like, it's going to be a really good one. So I'm looking forward to seeing this reunion and hoping that Amy and Johnny are so cute and happy together still. Happiness is what we want, right? But anyway, guys, what did you think about this finale? Were you shocked by AD and Clay? Were you thinking that AD was going to say no and Clay would say yes? What were you thinking? Comment down below. Oh, and also, what did you think about the Chelsea and Jimmy breakup? How could we forget about that? I feel like I talked about that for years. I feel like I talked about that years ago now. My God, what a crazy absolute season. Guys, what did you think of this season overall as well? Oh my God, overall, I have to say, I think this season was good. I enjoyed it, even though there was a very low success rate. I would say I really liked the drama this season. There was lots of drama, which I really liked. Obviously, we want love, but also we do like some good reality TV because we get to talk about it here, and I could just go off and talk about, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, what? Like, it's my favorite thing to say. It literally is. But guys, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Helps me out, helps out this channel. And if you're not already subscribed, like I always say, I'm sorry, what? Please click that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye! Another season done. Another season done. Oh my God, I can't believe we're going. This show could last forever. I'd be happy though. I'd be